Dr. Webster Tarpley, author and historian, joins us now via Skype from Washington to discuss the situation in Libya with us. Dr. Tarpley, first of all, I'd like to know if you would agree with that stance that was put forward there by the Russian foreign minister, that there's no end in sight to this war and that the NATO bombings have to stop because they're causing a lot of civilian casualties.
Well, I would certainly agree that the NATO bombings have caused a tremendous humanitarian emergency, and they have caused the deaths of many civilians. I've just gotten back myself from about 2 weeks in Tripoli, and I've personally visited a number of sites that were bombed out, including the Gaddafi compound where 3 of his grandchildren and 1 of his sons was killed, and also the home of General al-Khweldi, about 70 kilometers west of Tripoli in a locality called Sorman, where 4 very young children, a young mother, an aunt, a Sudanese cook, and his wife, a total of 10 civilian victims just in that site. So if you multiply that by the large number of sites, you get a large number of civilian victims. There were also constantly reports during my time in Tripoli that there was bombing in areas like Brega. They said that NATO was attacking food storage depots. They attacked a meat locker. And another thing in clear violation of the UN resolution, the NATO forces, including U.S. Predator drones, have set up a kind of a blockade along the seacoast, which has nothing to do with the no-fly zone. And they're using this to try to prevent Libyan fishermen from going out into the Mediterranean and bringing back fish. So they're actually trying to starve the civilian population, far from trying to protect them. So this is simply a cruel joke. It's a bogus sham.
All right, we are hearing at the same time, Dr. Tarpley, that the revolutionaries are, at least gradually gaining some ground, and they are nearing Tripoli. Some would argue that the NATO airstrikes have been helping them achieve that. But speaking of what the NATO bombings have so far achieved, do you think that there has been a lack of, maybe a lack of transparency on what the NATO strategy actually is in Libya? Because people have been saying, is NATO actually directly targeting Gaddafi himself? Why hasn't it been able to target Gaddafi up until now? And the civilian casualties you referred, and on top of all that, the concerns that this could become a prolonged war with troops getting on the ground as well.
Well, it is clear, of course, that the only policy that NATO has is murder, political assassination. It's a level of barbarism which I don't know whether we've seen it in the past several hundred years. You have to go back pretty far and dig pretty deep to get something as barbaric and primitive as the NATO policies. Again, it was to attack the Gaddafi compounds, the main ones in Tripoli, to attack certain outlying or suburban villas that he used to live in, and then to also attack the homes of people like the al-Khweldi family. This is a general who was part of the seizure of power in 1969 and remained a very important counselor. So in order to attack his home and kill his family, they defined his house as a military site. Now, I personally went around that site, delved into every corner I could, probably getting exposed to depleted uranium in the process, because that's undoubtedly coming down. I don't see any defense for that. It's just a sign of the political bankruptcy of NATO. Now, the rebels, without NATO bombing, without money, without weapons, without diplomatic support and media support, this rebellion would have ended long ago. Anybody who's concerned about humanitarianism would simply say, pull out the NATO bombers and let this rebellion collapse of its own dead weight. In terms of the stalemate, I would just say, Lavrov says there's a military stalemate. That may well be the case. I don't see any big gains for the rebels. I think these are manic reports that are repeated by Al Jazeera and other highly unreliable media sources. But in terms of the political side of it, I actually see an attrition of the attacking coalition. If you look at, for example, the fact that Norway has dropped out, that's about 10% of the raids right there. Right. I believe here in the United States that we have enough votes in the House of Representatives. If we got a clean bill that would simply say no more money, no more bombing, I think that would pass by a wide margin, and that would set up a confrontation between Obama and the House of Representatives, and those confrontations sometimes end in impeachment, as we've seen in the recent past. We've also got a lot of Republican presidential candidates talking about the fact that the Benghazi rebels are indeed al-Qaeda terrorists. I got a chance to look in at Italy, and I think there the Northern League, a right-wing part of the Berlusconi coalition, is very unhappy with the war. It may be that Berlusconi will have to drop out of the war with Italy and the Italian bases in order to prevent the Northern League from breaking up that coalition. So I think the political side of the attacking coalition is very weak.
Right. Thank you very much. A lot of interesting points raised there, Dr. Tarpley, but unfortunately we don't have enough time to discuss them. Thank you very much indeed for your comments. Dr. Webster Tarpley joining us via Skype from Washington.